Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was the son of Gabriel and Lucifer movie. Before we start, please go support PeladosapitoMedina for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 1. The war had begun on the side of the angels. He was the god, supreme leader of the angels, and the demon, Lucifer, along with his demon and the fallen angels, Azazel, the strongest cadre of all. The war had begun, thousands of deaths, but half of the war Lucifer attacked the strongest woman in heaven, the seraphim Gabriel. She was fighting furiously with her former brother, but Lucifer had the biggest advantage. But what scared Gabriel was that Lucifer raped her, but he was rescued by his brother and God. That was the war that hurt everyone the most. His sister had been abused by the demon king, but 2 months later Gabriel found out that she was carrying the son of a man who raped her. She wanted to stop that pregnancy, but God did not allow it since he had faith in her. That someday Gabriel could love that baby that came to this new world. But when the baby was born, Gabriel didn't even look at him or even carry him on the days of his birth. But God was surprised by Gabriel's baby. His hair was white as snow, his eyes were beautiful blue eyes, not even the eyes of God could compare to that. His beautiful eyes and a very calm aura only radiated a very pure purity in the innocent. 4 years. The child was seen playing with a car and a small dinosaur. And he was observed by God, who looked at him with a smile of love, but at the same time of sadness, since Gabriel did not want to see him and he had to raise him from birth. He also beat the other angels for being the son of a demon king and God alone. He saved him, but the little boy only told him that he forgave him and went out to get better. Because he does not want to see your son, he has not done anything to you, God said in his thoughts, seeing how the boy healed himself and approached. Issei, your mom is coming today, God said with a smile, and the little boy heard that his mother was coming today. He responded a lot, he even got angry, and God only made a small smile. And where is he? Said the little boy happily. He is in his house, said God, and the little boy went to take what he told his mother, for when he returned, and he said goodbye to his grandfather and he left. Gabriel, please do not mistreat him, God thought sadly, since even his own mother hid him. But the little one. The little boy was running, but he was seeing the hateful gaze of the other angels, but they must control themselves or else they would fall, and when he got home, he saw a blonde woman with blue eyes and a great figure, and the boy was happy. Mom, said the little boy, and the blonde listened to that and was filled with anger. What do you want, brat? Said the blonde, and the little boy just approached. I love you, give this, said the little boy, and when he went, the blonde gave him a hard slap that sent the little boy flying, since the blonde didn't hold back. I told you that I don't bother with your things, now clean up and go to sleep, and if you cry I'll hit you harder, said the blonde. Yes, I understand, said the little boy to clean up everything that happened, and the blonde just left, and when the little boy finished cleaning, he went to the bathroom to heal the wound, and when he was healed, tears fell into his eyes. Because I just want to make you smile, I just want a hug from you, nothing more, said the little boy through tears, and decided to go to his bedroom. The next day. He saw the little boy playing with the only toy he had in his life, but God saw his wound, and that struck him, and he decided to talk to his daughter about him. Gabriel, because he doesn't love Issei, said God. Father, I told you, I didn't want that monster since he was born. I wanted to abort, but you wouldn't let me, said Gabriel. But if they realized it, the little boy was listening to the conversation between his grandfather and mother. But I had faith that I love him, said God, sad for his daughter. I will never love him for the rest of my life, Gabriel said almost in a shout. Besides, he is a bastard. He is the son of Lucifer, the demon king. I will never love that child. Gabriel said, and the little boy heard that he was the son of the demon king. Now he knew the reason why he hated him so much, but his grandfather was younger. He left without silence, but when he came out he saw his uncle Michael, who looked at him with a cold look. Uncle, what happened? It didn't end because Michael kicked him hard. I'm not your uncle right now, I'm going to end all my sister's pain, he said with a cold look, and gave him a strong blow that left him almost unconscious, and he made a magic circle to disappear from their unknown place. A magic circle appeared, and out of there came Michael and the little Issei, and when the little boy regained consciousness he saw someone who was in front of them. It was a man with long hair, blood-red eyes and an evil smile. The little boy was just trembling with fear since he cannot defend himself, and Michael just throws him towards where the subject is, and the man just walks. Fence, so this is the bastard son of Seraphim, Gabriel said with a devilish smile. Ah, whatever you want with the Gabriel, Michael said calmly. Don't worry, Michael, I will give my greatest attention to you, little one, said Gabriel, showing a smile, and the little boy was just trembling with fear. Tio, please don't. He didn't finish because Michael kicked him. I told you that I'm not your uncle, said Michael with cold eyes to make a magic circle and leave there. Well, you and I are going to play, Gabriel said to approach the boy. Don't get close to me, my mom will come and save me, said the little boy. Ahahaha, you think your mom will come, don't make me laugh, your mom will never, maybe she always wanted to abort you, said Gabriel, and the little boy just looked down since it was true and he heard it himself from his own mother. I love her anyway and she will come for me, he told her confidently. That's your problem, boy, Gabriel said and took out some fire whips with steel tips. I always wanted to do this with a toy and right now I have one, said Gabriel. Wait for was the cry of the little boy who gave a scream torn by the pain he felt at that moment. Gabriel continued playing with the little boy who only screamed for someone to save him, then he let him go and saw that the little boy was marked and burned by his whip. Let's see how much it resists lightning, Gabriel said maliciously. Wait please, he said with a weak voice, but Gabriel threw a lightning bolt at him with such force, he was just screaming and crying. Gabriel even threw water at him so that the lightning bolt would hit him with more effect, but his misfortune unconsciously took out his wings. Fence your wings if they are beautiful, I wonder what happens if I tear them off, Gabriel said, and the little boy saw Gabriel with much more terror. Wait please, was the child who screamed when he felt his first two wings being cruelly torn off. 3 hours later. You could see a little boy with his body injured, one look without him being dead, his wings were winged from him, since Gabriel had totally turned off all of his wings, cruelly, he did not even move. We played a lot, but I would continue playing with you, but he is already dead, it is a real shame, Gabriel said taking out his 5 black wings and leaving there. The little boy began to repeat little by little as he regained consciousness. Because he said to himself as a child for the first time in his life he hated himself, he hated the demons with all his might, and even more so Lucifer, he hated his mother. Gabriel hated Michael, hated everyone who tortured them, and more of that hatred was directed at a special person, Gabriel, and finally Issei had fallen because of hatred. In the sky. God was seen with tears in his eyes since he saw all the torture as a child. Call Gabriel and Michael, God said to some of his angels, and he only listened 30 minutes later. Father, you called us to call, Gabriel said calmly since a short time ago they stopped their conversation, but when he got home, he didn't find the monster from his house. Tell me, Michael, I just want to ask you a little question, God said. Yes, Father, which question? Michael said. Where is he, Issei? God said. Michael just tense up because of that, and Gabriel looked at him. What's wrong with you, Michael, do you know where that monster is? Gabriel said, but God gets up from his throne. That's enough for you, I won't take it anymore, Gabriel and Michael, God said seriously, and they both got scared. Gabriel, tell me why he hates Issei, the one who did nothing to you, he just wanted your love, and you couldn't see it when Issei was born. I imagined Lucifer a lot, but no, he came out a lot to you, a kind, generous child, and he doesn't even kill an insect, he only wanted your love, nothing more, said God, and Gabriel, alone under his gaze, unconsciously, tears fell into his eyes. But what did she receive in exchange for that pain, suffering, agony at your side? I am not worthy of being loved, I am not worthy of someone loving you, I am not worthy of having a son like Issei. Gabriel, at this moment let him be a seraph, God said, and Gabriel just fell on his knee as he realized his biggest mistake, that monster as she called him, in reality she was the monster of that house. Father, please forgive me, Gabriel said through tears, and saw Michael in the same way he had tears. Brother, where is Issei? Tell me, Gabriel said desperately, and Michael only began to shed more tears. That is no longer necessary, God giving a crystal sphere to Gabriel, and she grabs it, and when she began to see where her son is she became very terrified since she was next to Gabriel. You take him to Gabriel, Gabriel said in a whisper, watching as his son was totally tortured in the worst way that existed. Now get out of here, God said, and they just agreed and each one left. When Gabriel went home he saw his son's room, and fearfully he headed towards the room, and when he entered he saw several beautiful things. Gabriel was surprised. She was fascinated by the room and saw something that caught her attention. It was a painting and she recognized it immediately, and when she saw its contents, she couldn't take it anymore and cried because it was her and Issei when he was a baby. I'm so sorry, my baby, said Gabriel through tears as he really realized his biggest mistake of his life, and it was never going to go away. Unknown place. It was seen how the little boy wanted to get up little by little, but his leg did not respond. Then he heard a wolf howl and looked up as there was a wolf, and he saw how it was looking at him, and he thought it was the end of him, since he saw how that wolf was. I approached him as if I were going to tire him out. Or so he supposed since he saw how the wolf stood in front of him, but the little boy was amazed by the beautiful color of that wolf. He couldn't take it anymore and fell unconscious again, and the wolf who was looking at him with only his head, put him on his back and began to jump with incredible ease, and the wolf had reached a kind of spring that just threw him and the little one he only began to sink little by little, until the wolf waited 5 minutes, and again he sank, and again he took out the little boy that now his. Wound was completely healthy, and the wolf only covered him with his body and the fur that it was warm. The following days. The little albino began to open his eyes, those eyes that once had life were just a dead shell, and he saw that he was on top of him, and there was the same wolf that saw him yesterday. "Pioneers," said the little boy with a dead voice, and the wolf was just silent and simply gave him a lick on his cheek. "Thank you for saving me," said the little one, carrying the wolf's fur very calmly, but he realized something. He again took out his wings that had previously been torn off, but he had them again, but they were no longer white as snow, but not like the night. Darker than the same night as a sign that had fallen. "I just realized something, the dreams I had about that angel, it was false, she never loved me and she never will," Issei said with a cold look while he kept his wings, although don't say it, Gabriel's words also helped him to come to grips with reality. "Someday Gabriel, I will find you and I will kill you in the worst possible way," Issei said with his cold voice, and the wolf that was winged with him just started to come back. "Do you want to travel with me?" Issei said, and he just agreed, and Issei gave him a loving look and a smile. "Let's go," said Issei as he begins to walk with his new partner. Chapter 2. It had already been many years after the last great war between factions, but that war the god, leader of the angels and the demon Lucifer, died along with the other Santons. The angels received a hard blow from the death of their creator, and that long time they remembered little Issei, that made them more regretful for the damage it caused him when he lived. The three large factions were at peace, each side did nothing, not even attacking other factions. Gabriel returned to Seraphimigo, although she no longer wanted to make one, and her hobby was always going to the human world to see how the women had her first child. When she saw that, she would only cry, because thousands of years ago she had a son, but she always mistreated him, she hid him. She didn't even celebrate his birthday, and the only thing she had of Issei was that small picture of her, and when she was just a baby she no longer liked war, much less violence. That war died 1,000 years ago. "Gabriel finds you fine," Michael said, opening the door, and Gabriel just turned around. He was responsible for losing his son, and Michael just looked down. "I really regret doing that," Michael said sadly. "That doesn't matter anymore, that's in the past, just tell me what's coming," said Gabriel. Even though he never said it, he could never forget his autumn. "We are going to the meeting between factions in a few hours, and I want to know if you want to go," he said sadly. "It's okay," Gabriel said, and Michael, without saying anything else, just closes the door. "Issei, forgive me, you don't know how much I regret it, how they would like to have you in my arm, ask for your forgiveness and give you that smile that you have longed for so much," Gabriel said with tears in his eyes and looking at the painting, and just closes his eyes as it comes to him. The image of Issei with a big smile that only showed innocence and peace. "You don't know how much I suffer, Issei. Please come back," Gabriel said through tears, but what he wanted was impossible. His son had died because of him and because of his brother. In an unknown place. The little boy was seen lying on a bed of fur, and his eyes were deathly, and next to him there was a wolf with many colors that was on top of him. "You know, old friend, I found out there is a meeting," he said with a dead voice, and the wolf just nodded. "Guess who's going?" That brought together the leaders of each faction, but the most curious thing is that Gabriel is going to attack alongside the original descendant of Leviathan, said the little boy, since that for thousands of years, it could never grow for some strange reason, but he didn't care. "I matter," and the wolf only stops, and the little one too. "Come on, I have a score to settle with that," Gabriel said Issei with a look so cold that it would make someone very afraid of him. Just then he hears a voice that comes directly in his head. "Let's free me, he has to feel the pain he did to us," said a cold voice, and someone like a person appeared behind him. "Shut up, you don't have to tell me that, that's why I'm going," he responded with the same tone as always, and the silhouette leaves with a big smile. "Come on, friend," said the little one to take out 6 black wings as the same night, and the wolf just acknowledged, and his fur turned a very dark blue color and some marks on his body. In the meeting. Several leaders are in that meeting, such as from the demon it was Serzich's Lucifer, Serapho Leviathan, the Gremory group along with Sona Citri and Tsubaki, and from the fallen angels, it was Azazel and Penemu and the White Dragon Emperor as his bodyguard, and from the angels, it was Michael, current leader of heaven, and next to her sister Gabriel. They discussed the scares about her features, but Serapho and Penemu looked at Gabriel seriously, since she knew what happened in heaven, or rather everyone in the room knew it. They just shook their heads. Even the level she was currently in did not compare to her previous level, but she was reunited with being attacked by a magician, but also Kateria Leviathan, descendant director of original Leviathan Gabriel, one of the former Cadre Grigori since Azazel banished him from his faction. "Gabriel, Kateria, what does he do?" said Azazel and Serziches at the same time. "Nothing here, just starting a war," Gabriel said with a smile, then he saw Gabriel and Michael. "Hello Gabriel and my old friend Michael," said Gabriel in a mocking tone. "What do you want?" Michael said seriously. "Because with so much seriousness, friend, you no longer remember how much fun we had with that little guy, what's his name?" Gabriel said thoughtfully, and Michael shook his fist. I do remember very well, Gabriel, you told me his name is Issei, said Kateria in a mocking tone, and Gabriel just lowers his gaze. Thank you, my dear Kateria, Gabriel said maliciously. Gabriel, I know what you did, but it doesn't have to come to this, Gabriel said with pain in his voice. Gabriel, I'll tell you, at your current level he couldn't touch me, but if he was at your previous level, he would defeat me so easily, said Gabriel, and making a spear of light above him. Let's not go to war anymore, we're just going to spill more blood, said Gabriel, wanting Kateria and Gabriel to see reason. The death of his son really made him change so much, they all thought. Don't make me laugh, Gabriel said to throw the spear of light at him, and Gabriel did the same. I'll take care of Gabriel, Azazel said seriously, and when he took the first step he was sent flying by white armor. How can you betray us, Vali? Azazel said, a little hurt, but the others got nervous since one of the celestial dragons had betrayed him. I'm sorry, Azazel, but this side is much more fun, Vali said gracefully. I didn't expect a minor from the original Lucifer's descendant, Azazel said with grace, and surprised everyone by that, including Gabriel, since if that was true, he was the brother of his late son Issei. That's right, I am a descendant of his director and a human woman, said Vali, taking out his wings and confirming everything. Vali provoked his rival, that it was a ritual, that he was going to murder his family, and he knew that he was going to kill him. His father got angry and activated his balance breaker. Come on, Gabriel, fight with me, avenge your son. Only a disgusting being would not avenge his own son who has the murderer in front of his own eyes, Gabriel said, releasing a powerful aura next to Kateria. I'll take care of Gabriel, Gabriel said, surprising everyone by that. Be sure, said Azazel, since a century ago he lost interest in how he hid his son. Yes was his only word from him to release his aura from him also with Azazel. Come on, Crow, Kateria said, and the four of them launched themselves against their opponent, and the others only put up another more resistant barrier, since 2 dragons, 2 fallen angels and a supreme class demon and a seraph would cause great destruction. Outside the barrier, an albino only looked at the white armor to know that he was also a descendant of the original Lucifer, and that would make him his brother, although he does not care if he dies, but he saw how his former mother was humiliated by Gabriel. Kateria. He fought with Azazel almost at the same time, and the 2 red and white dragons fought with each other. Then he heard a voice, and it was the same voice. Come on, Issei, let's teach him the true form of a demon, said the voice in his head, and Issei just smiled, but it was N''T a normal smile, it was N''T one of evil. Believe me, I will do it with pleasure, said Issei with the same smile, and he created wings of darkness and flew out of there, and now he was in front of the barrier, and if he entered the barrier and listened to Gabriel's words. Come on, Gabriel, he can't, Gabriel said. I don't want to fight anymore, Gabriel, said Gabriel. How I would like him to be here, that Brad and I suffered from doing it the last time we did it, said Gabriel with mockery, and when Gabriel was speaking a voice was present, but that voice made everyone stop their fight, since for a few strange reason that voice scared everyone. Sate, how long has it been, Gabriel? Said the voice, appearing in front of everyone. It was a boy with snow-white hair and blue eyes who was dead, and the most curious thing was he had a knife in his hand. Nobody said anything because of everyone's surprise, since nobody knew who that child was, but Michael and Gabriel herself were surprised, but the latter was crying, since that child would remember him wherever he went, but now that child was very different, now he had a cold look without emotions, and for a moment the image of his former son came to him. Issei, Gabriel said in a whisper. Chapter 3. Nobody said anything but Gabriel, the child who was in front of his own, was the one who ruined his life from birth, and the leaders didn't say anything, either because a child appeared out of nowhere, and then he heard Gabriel's voice as I have finally remembered. To that child who was in front of everyone. That's you, Gabriel said, surprised since he thought he had been killed, but it wasn't, and the funniest thing was that he was the same size. Yes, Gabriel is me, said the little one, causing Gabriel to laugh, and Kateria looks at him with curiosity. Gabriel, who is that child? Kateria said. That child is the bastard son of Seraph Gabriel, Gabriel said with grace, and when he said everyone opened their eyes in surprise, but more Michael because his suspicion of him was true. That child is the son of Seraph Gabriel, Ria said surprised, but everyone heard something that would surprise him more, but would leave Gabriel crying more. That's right, Gabriel, I am the bastard son of Seraph Gabriel, and also the unfortunate son of Lucifer, Issei said with cold eyes. Issei is really you, Gabriel said in his voice. You could see hope, longing and affection and being able to hug him, but the little one did not take him into account. Thank you for coming, Issei. We can continue playing where we left off before, Gabriel said, as he was also in disgrace to his own mother, as he was going to see his son tortured. I can join you, Gabriel said Kateria with malice in her voice. But Gabriel heard that she was going to torture him. She was not going to allow it since thousands of years had passed. She thought that her son had died for many years, but it was not until now he was in front of her eyes, and she thought I wanted to talk to her, and I decided to stand up, but Gabriel and Kateria formed a barrier around them, three including Issei. I'm sorry, but you will be a spectator along with the others, Gabriel said gracefully. Gabriel listened. She wanted to break the barrier, but all her strength had abandoned her, and the leaders only approached her. Son, please run away from Hey, Gabriel said, but Issei looked at her with a cold look and dead of emotions. Tell me one more time, son, the two of them will not die, the only one who will die will be you, said Issei with a cold voice and a murderous aura, and her eyes showed hatred. Gabriel and the others did not have a word. His own son just threatened to kill him, although they completely understood that child, and Gabriel only shed a few tears listening to his son's word, although it was not difficult because he hated it. Inside, Gabriel and Kateria just looked at Issei with an arrogant smile, but Issei looked at him if that too were rubbish. Come on, Issei, let's continue playing where we left off a century ago, Gabriel said with a smile, and Issei returned to that smile, but it was very innocent. Of course Gabriel plus Kateria also wants to play with us, said Issei with the same smile. At that point he watches as Gabriel and Kateria make a magic circle in their hand, and both throw powerful rays that hit Issei directly. Gabriel just started crying as Issei was struck by two powerful lightning bolts that not even she would come out healthy, but the leaders paid attention to him since the little boy did not cry out in pain, and Gabriel also noticed that and looked up, expecting the worst, but he didn't go to the little one. He was like if nothing had happened. It's serious, Gabriel and Kateria, that's all. I wanted something more, said the little boy, so that his hand came out with rays, and he joined his two hands and threw those rays at Gabriel and Kateria. Let's see that he dodges it quickly since it was coming at a great speed, but in the same way they were surprised because his attack didn't work, and that made both of them get serious. This is not the child I know, Gabriel said seriously, and Kateria, listening to that, also became serious. Come on, this is just beginning, Issei said and raised her hand, and her finger began to move differently, and they both saw how Issei's fingers grew a little, including her nails. They both had no words. It was the first time they had seen something done in their lives. Seriously, it's the child who tortured you, Kateria said seriously. Like I told you, this is not the same child anymore, he said seriously, and they saw how Issei started to walk. Come on, Gabriel and Kateria, this hasn't started yet, Issei said, so that lightning began to come out from his hand, and a wave of lightning shot out of Issei's body, and his hair grew longer than normal, and his blue eyes shined brighter than normal. Nobody said anything because of what they just saw in front of their eyes. Even the leaders began to be afraid of Issei, since that simple aura could defeat him, and seeing who Issei's fathers are. Come on, Gabriel, said Issei, appearing in front of Gabriel and giving him a strong kick that sent him flying. Issei saw Kateria, she shuddered at Issei's gaze. He just took a big leap and with his right hand created a very powerful lightning sphere. This is for you, Issei said to throw at her the lightning that accumulated in her hand. When Kateria wanted to dodge it, she couldn't sense that lightning was coming quickly, but she thought there was no pain, but that thought was her biggest mistake since she gave a scream and Gabriel threw a spear of light at him, which Issei only grabbed with his two fingers, surprising everyone. No, Gabriel, I'm not the same as a century ago, Issei said with a cold voice. They give him a strong blow in the stomach and Kateria took advantage of that and launched an attack that he sent to Issei. Gabriel, let's stop playing. We see that this child is not like the other time you told me, Kateria said seriously, and Gabriel just acknowledged since he also realized that both just nod and take out some snakes and his powers increase. Outside. That's not the snake of the god of infinity, said Gabriel, worried and wanting to break the barrier with Michael, but they were very powerful. It's useless, this barrier is very powerful. We can only wish that child luck, Azazel said seriously. Inside. I looked at Gabriel and Kateria as they suddenly increased their aura and it returned to its normal state. You were already afraid of us, said Gabriel with grace. I must admit that I'm a little scared, Kateria said, already relieved when she heard Issei's word from her. If he is afraid of something, then become strong to let him fear him, said Issei to release a very powerful aura. But I never said that I fight with all my power, said Issei with a smile of pure evil. They were scared when they saw that smile that only showed pure evil, but the scare was one of terror since Issei was enveloped in darkness. While his aura continued to increase and surpassed both of them, they wanted to leave because of that darkness that they felt, but when they wanted to break that barrier, they saw a wolf that looked at him, as if it were his prestihi. And that you can hear if something was breaking into 1,000 pieces. The two of them with terror saw how the cocoon that they were before, Issei, was no longer there. Now this Issei with very peculiar Rappa, his shirt of him was no longer there, now he had a vest. Of darkness, and the pants were also made of darkness, and a bracelet of darkness on his wrist, and a very dark aura, and even more that smile that he gave him and those dark red eyes that gave him more terror. No one said anything, everyone was afraid, even the two celestial dragons were trembling with fear. "They are what happened to you," said Gabriel, surprised by what had just become in her eyes. "Comrade, run," Drake said, his voice was evident with fear, and that made the others surprised, since they knew that Drake had great pride. "Bali, for the first time I agree with the red lizard, let's run away," said Albion with the same Drake tone. "You too, what's wrong with you? I know that you exude a very, very terrifying aura, but it's nothing to get angry about," Bali said seriously, but he was surprised by the power of his older brother, since he knew that he beat him. "Old idiot, that's not all his power," Drake said seriously, and surprised everyone by that, because if that was true, how powerful was that child? Inside, Gabriel and Kateria only trembled with fear, since it never occurred to them that this child was that powerful. "We are going to play Gabriel, but first I want to eliminate the garbage," Issei said with a dark smile, and Kateria knew what was coming for her. She was terrified, and they saw how Issei, that same darkness, made giant claws. "And if Issei blows Kateria's head off with the same smile he had." "Wait, Issei, can we talk?" said Gabriel, terrified. "What's wrong, Gabriel? He's terrified," Issei said with his cold voice. "Don't worry, I'll give you good care like you gave me a long time ago," Issei said with a smile. He just started to back away out of fear, and Issei walked calmly. "I'm a monster," said Gabriel, terrified. "But this monster was created by your Gabriel along with Michael," Issei said with the same smile, and suddenly he disappears from there and appears in front of Gabriel, who gave him a strong kick that sent Gabriel back against a wall, and he saw how Issei hit him. His hand grew like it did Kateria. Issei with that huge claw hit Gabriel mercilessly, and Issei tore off one of his arms, but burned his right arm with a dark flame. Now Gabriel was armless. "What's wrong, Gabriel? I heard that he was going to torture me," Issei said with a mocking tone, and to expel more darkness. 1,000 divine cuts, Issei said to launch himself at Gabriel, and he only felt like 1,000 cuts or blades were passing through his body. "What's up, let's continue playing Gabriel, after all we're on the same side," Issei said, taking out his blackest black wings from Azazel. "Issei, you fell," Gabriel said in a whisper that everyone heard perfectly, although no one was surprised by the damage, and the aura he gave off was more than obvious that he had fallen years ago. "See that I wasn't lying, her.ma.ni.to," Issei said in a mocking tone to see him again with a look of hatred. "I still don't plan to kill you, you are going to suffer for what I suffered," said Issei with a cold voice, and Gabriel had regretted for torturing Issei at that time. Issei cut off Gabriel's leg, then he began to give him several recharges of lightning, and Gabriel was being tortured in the worst possible way. Now he felt like his enemy was torturing him, and he saw how Issei was walking away from Hay, and he thought he was leaving him alive, but it was not done. "Don't think I'll let you live, my friend is hungry," said Issei with a dark smile. Gabriel only saw the wolf that was previously outside, since he was now in front of him. He only saw how that wolf showed its teeth and began to eat it up to its head. Nobody said anything. They saw how Gabriel was completely devoured by that wolf. They even felt afraid of that wolf, and the barrier had been broken, and Gabriel stopped and walked very slowly towards Issei, and he realized that and just looked at him with a murderous look, but like a mother, Gabriel was not intimidated by that look that Issei gave him. Chapter 4. Gabriel was a few centimeters from Issei, but he was only looking at him with cold eyes since a century had passed, and now he was in front of his eyes. "If you get any closer I will kill you," said Issei with blood-red eyes. "Issei, I love you, but I didn't finish," since Issei interrupted her. Sorry, what right do you ask for forgiveness? Tell me, answer me in heaven. I only received abuse, beatings humiliated me in front of your eyes, and I didn't do anything. The only one who helped me was my grandfather also. I heard your conversation with my grandfather," Issei said seriously, and Gabriel listened. That scared him. "Don't tell me that you," said Gabriel, surprised and regretful. "If I heard you, I told you, I didn't want that monster since he was born, I wanted to abort," Issei said seriously, since he always remembers that word, and making Gabriel cry, and Issei continued talking. "I will never love him for the rest of my life, besides, he is a bastard, he is the son of a demon king, I will never love that child," Issei finished saying since that was Gabriel's words. "I was just crying because that word really affected her. After all, I was right, I am the son of a bastard, Lucifer," Issei said with a cold voice to start walking, but an armor stood in front of him. "What do you want?" Issei said seriously. "You have the blood of a demon king," said Vali seriously. "Whether he has it or not, that's not your problem now long, or if he doesn't want to mate," Issei said with a cold look. Vali only did since Albion warned him of his power. "Wait," Rhea said. No Gremory, I will not be a slave to a spoiled girl 1,000 times. I want to be Gabriel's torture toy, Issei said, surprising everyone because that word was not a lie, rather it was the truth. Son, can we try? Please give me another chance like you gave me in the past, Gabriel said sadly. No way, Issei said with his cold voice, and Gabriel looks at him with hope. Issei deactivates his assault mode. I loved you so much, mother, I would even give my life for you because of that time when I lived in heaven, Issei said with a smile, and Gabriel, seeing that smile as his former son gave it, got very excited and gave him a hug. I wanted this hug so much and I longed for it. I adored you so much that I couldn't help it. My heart danced with happiness. Issei said with the voice of a child, and Gabriel thought he would give him a chance, and that's what the leaders thought, but he was wrong. But now I don't feel anything, Issei said with a cold voice, so that Gabriel looked at him surprised by the words that his own son said. I understand, that child who once loved you died many years ago, the one who could give his life for you, now this one was born, the one who kills, the one who spreads fear to people. Now I don't care if you live or die, now get out of my way, Issei said, pulling Gabriel hard, but Michael grabbed him. Let's go, said Issei, creating wings of darkness and leaving with his wolf. Gabriel stayed and shed several tears. To be honest, it was coming to me, Azazel said calmly. What does that mean? Michael said. I don't know whether to answer you or not, but a child who alone suffered for many centuries because of who his own mother and his uncle and the other angels, the only reason that child had not fallen ago, a lot was for his grandfather, Azazel said, and the two angels only lowered their gaze since what Azazel said was true. That's the consequence, Gabriel, Azazel said seriously, and she just looked down. And if she's sorry, why don't she look for him again? Serafil said, drawing everyone's attention. You know what can happen without Gabriel, look for that child, Serzerches said seriously. You're right, I gave up when I thought my son had died because of Gabriel, but now that someone is still alive, I'm not going to give up, said Gabriel with determination. Well, I'm leaving, let's go, Penemu, Azazel said, and she just nodded and went. Vali had also gone to each one of them, he went to her features. Not Grigori. You very well know how to find that child, right, said a female voice, seeing a figure of a man walking. Of course, after all, that child is a fallen angel and half a demon, and I'm not the only one looking for that child, said the man. Serzich is true, said the woman. That's Penemu, and if we find him first we can have him join our faction, said the man. You never change, right, Azazel, said Penemu with a smile. Not really, but it's a shame that that child is like that because of those two, Azazel said with a cold look, and Penemu, to see that look, had a chill, because Azazel can be very generous and kind, but when he is in a fight or something that bothers him, it can cause fear in everyone. Not for nothing is he Grigori's strongest fallen angel and also his leader. But the little one. He only watched as the moon was hiding, but if he looked closely, the moon was also reflected in his eyes, making him see more beautiful eyes than people had ever seen. Unconsciously, a tear fell in his eyes. The wolf, to see that, approaches him and brings out that tear, and the little boy just looks at him, and they just give him a smile. In the sky. Gabriel had told everyone to his brother that he did not know what happened at the meeting. Uriel and Raphael had no word to listen to that Gabriel's son was still alive. They were surprised but at the same time happy because this way he could apologize even though it hurt him. That little boy with a very pure and innocent soul has fallen because of him. Gabriel had gone to her son's old room, and when she saw the painting that she was going to give him when she had arrived home, it was something that she regretted for slapping her own son. That way she wanted her son to was here, and that he gave her that painting, and she received it with a big hug and a huge kiss. But that was impossible since her son was no longer the same as before, now he was someone cold and without feeling, but she had been going for a long time. Everything possible so that his son returns to the same person he was thousands of years ago. In the underworld. The high-ranking demon was also looking for little Issei. Serziches must want that child to be part of our faction, Serafil said seriously. Serafil, that child has the blood of the demon and is also the son of Seraph Gabriel. He has great power, and if we make Riaz tired of him, he can see new demons with great powers, said Serziches. He only wants to use it as an incubator for a strong demon, said Serafil, annoyed. He knows very well that that child did not demonstrate all his power, and I'm not saying it. Drake also said it, and Albion's voice showed clear fear or rather terror. Remember that the strength of a celestial dragon can destroy the underworld, and if that two dragons were afraid with only Issei's strength, I don't want to imagine him with all his power. Think about it, Serzerches could destroy the entire underworld for a simple whim of yours, said Serafil, serious about leaving. Hey, and I left Serziches to think that it was true that two dragons felt afraid with just the presence of Issei, and he also killed Kateria much more easily and gave Kakabiel a painful death until the end. That will fade him. And some cows brigade bases. So Seraphim Gabriel's son is not dead, said a tall man with silver hair and blue eyes. That's right, my lord, he even killed Kateria with a single blow, and Gabriel tortured him for what he did to her many years ago, said his servant. Very well, let's pay my brother a visit, said the man. What does Risivam Sama think? Said his servant of him. What else, I'm going to make him join the cows brigade, he said with a smile. Come on Euclid, look where that child went, said Risivam with a smile. It's okay, my lord, Euclid said to leave. Very soon Issei will be with me, said Risivam with a devilish smile. But Issei. He was just looking at his only friend, and then he heard a voice in his head. Come on, Issei, why didn't you kill that angel? Said Issei's counterpart. That's not your problem, Issei said with a cold voice. Don't tell me that someone loves her, said the voice in a mocking tone. I don't love her anymore, she can die if she wants, Issei said seriously, feeling like someone was behind him, but he didn't even look since it was his counterpart who gave him a smile. But Issei began to walk to where his friend was and lay down ready to sleep. And look how his counterpart smiled at him with an evil smile, that smile that he also gave when he killed his enemy, and one of his eyes became like blood. Have a sweet dream, said his counterpart, and he walks to where Issei is and works with him again, and Issei finally falls asleep. Chapter 5. Issei was asleep on the back of his friend and companion, or so it was assumed since there was a group of people in front of them, but a blonde who looked at him sadly, but was happy to see again and watch like a movie. Red was walking slowly under the gaze of everyone. Riaz, what do you think? Serzicha said seriously. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that he's asleep to join him with my entourage and don't make a fuss, Riaz said in a low voice, and when he was about to get closer Issei and with the wolf opened their eyes. Riaz, seeing that, got scared and went to where her brother is, or else that boy was going to kill her in the worst way possible. If you're done talking, now get out of my sight, Issei said with a cold look, and everyone gave him a shiver. We just want to talk to you, boy, but we didn't know he was awake, Azazel said nervously. I heard everything since they came, this is the only option I know, and since I was born, said Issei, getting up from his friend's back and looking coldly. I'm going to give you 3 damn seconds to leave, or else prepare for me to let you be the leaders of your factions, Issei said with a cold look, while expelling a murderous instinct. Son, please let's talk, said Gabriel, sad, but at the same time scared, together with the others, not even Lucifer expelled an aura like that. It proved that he really was Lucifer's son. You always had an opportunity to talk to me, but what I received in heaven hit me, left me on the verge of death, tortured me days and night, and now he comes here and asks me to speak. What right does Issei said with a colder voice than the previous one. Gabriel only remained silent while tears fell on the ground, a sign that he was crying. I alone was biased by my hatred, Gabriel said through tears while he was hugged by his brother, and everyone just decided to remain silent. I hate myself just because I am the son of Lucifer. Everyone looked at me with disgust. But the only person who loved me was my grandfather. He even gave me my name. A name that you didn't even want to give me, said Issei to start walking. Wait, I want to propose something to you, Serzicha said, and Issei looks at him and walks to where he is. Listen to me very well. If you continue bothering me, not only you will die. I will destroy the entire underworld, and I don't care who stands in front of me, because I will kill them in the worst way, said Issei with eyes red like blood itself in a louder voice. Deep it was if they had 2 voices at the same time, a demonic one and a cold voice. Serzicha's was just shaking with fear, he even peed his pants, and Azazel took a photo of him so he wouldn't forget that moment. I understand, Serzicha said with fear, and Issei just started walking, but out of nowhere he stops and sees a corner, and in his right hand, he makes a sphere of darkness and throws it out of there. Under the look that he didn't understand anything. But that answer was given instantly. An albino came out of smoke but a little hurt. And the leaders became serious since the person in front was Risivam Live and Lucifer, Issei's stepbrother. What are you doing here? Michael said seriously together with the others. It's not obvious, I'm coming to see my little brother, Risivam said with a smile, and everyone had a more serious face than before. He is not your brother, said Gabriel, it would be serious, although she did not accept it, it was true, Issei was Risivam's stepbrother. I'm not coming, talk to you because it bores me, said rising with boredom, then looked at Issei. Now what do you want? Said Issei. I come to propose something to you, Issei, said Risivam with a smile while the leaders just decided to listen. And what is it? Issei said without interest. I want you to join the cows brigade, he said, and everyone opened their eyes in surprise. He's not going to do any of that, Gabriel said seriously as he expelled his aura from him. Come on, Issei, accept. So we can demonstrate our true power, said a voice in Issei's head. We are not going to allow it, Serzicha said to launch a power of destruction, but was cut in half by the other person who appeared. How long has it been, sister? Euclid said with a smile. Rafi along with Serzicha's put on a serious face since in front of them she had 2 supreme class demons. What is Euclid doing here? Serafal said seriously. I only come with Risivam Sama, Euclid said with a smile. And tell me, accept, Risivam said with a smile, and Ice just looked at him with a cold look. Only with a drive, I said with a serious look, and Risivam only looked at him, but the leaders who accepted were very worried, and Gabriel was even more concerned since they were aware of Ice's tremendous power of him. Don't do it, Ice, Gabriel said, but Ice just ignored her completely. What is that condition, said Risivam, and Ice just looked down, and some just looked at that with fear, but more so the Gremory and Citri group, and suddenly Ice looked up, and some of his eyes were like blood itself. May I kill the most powerful people of all, said Ice with a smile that only reflected pure evil. Done, said Risivam with a smile, forgetting Ice in the Cows Brigade. Son, please don't do it, come back to me please, Gabriel said through tears. I'm sorry, but it's something you don't care about, said Ice without giving it importance. Then we're leaving, Euclid said to make a magic circle to walk where the circle is next to Risivam, and behind them was Ice, but for the last time he looks at Gabriel and the leaders. When we meet again we will be enemies, until then goodbye, said Ice to disappear, leaving a very devastated Gabriel in tears while she was consoled between Seraphol and Penemu. We have a plan, Azazel said seriously. What plan, Serziches said confused. Ice is at a much higher level than us, he could even defeat the 2 celestial dragons with ease, and even more so if he is with the Cows Brigade at this moment, he is a threat to all the factions, Azazel said seriously. Some were only surprised by the seriousness. By Azazel he could be someone kind and carefree, but when it was a serious matter he was also very serious. You're right, said Serziches. You can't do that, said Gabriel, panicking about murdering his own son. I agree with Gabriel, Michael said seriously. I'm sorry, Gabriel and Michael. But this is your fault. If you hadn't mistreated that child, he wouldn't be our enemy right now, said Azazel, making a magic circle. Let's go, Penemu, Azazel said, and she just nodded, and they both disappeared from there and each leader left from there. In some of the Risivam bases. Ice was taken to see the Cows Brigade facilities while Ice and Risivam walked. Ice mental space. You could see a white-haired man sitting in a chair with a chain on his hand and foot, and in front of him there was also a white-haired man who looked at him with a smile. How's Ice? Said the subject, and the white-haired man only looked up. I didn't hurt my mom anymore, said Ice's good emotions. Well, it hurts, Ice, as long as the body is emotionless it will be manipulated by me, said Ice's negative emotions with a smile. That will be very soon, said Ice. Well. Understand, Ice, she hit us and humiliated us in heaven, and yet you still love her, he said to hit Ice. Yes, I still follow her, dear, Ice said with certainty in her word, but a tear of blood fell. We'll see that very soon, he answered to leave Hay and left Ice in that dark place. Help me, Mom, said Ice. Chapter 6. A lot had happened with the factions, one of which was that the 3 large factions were receiving a lot of attack from the Cows Brigade, but in that attack Ice always appeared, even Azazel and Serziches pronounced that Ice was a danger to all the factions, of course Gabriel and Michael protested. Along with the other seraphim, but Azazel always reminded him whose fault it was she, and that made him remain silent. But they had a meeting with the father of all Odin, the god of Norse mythology, but what they don't know is that he was going to be attacked. Tell us, Odin Sama agrees to join the alliance with the 3 great factions, said Serziches, while behind him was Azazel and Michael next to Gabriel, and when Odin was going to say something a voice was present. I protest, said a voice. I knew it was coming, said Odin seriously, while a magic circle formed in the air and out of it came Loki. I introduce myself, I am a Norse god, my name is Loki, said Loki with an arrogant smile. Yes, no one noticed that it was observed by Ice, who looked at it with boredom. He was alone, since he only had one mission. Kill Loki, but he decided to see what Loki did, but it didn't take long since Loki only invoked some of his son was a wolf with big fangs, that wolf was Fenrir, who says he can kill the gods themselves with that fang. But the show was over since Ajuka had closed in a dimension. This might be a little interesting, said the little boy with a dark smile to see behind him Riaz, Kaneko and Rito entered back inside. So they already took care of them, it seems that the circuité became a little stronger than the last time I saw him, said Ice with boredom. At that point he saw how the leaders entered a giant room, and without further ado, Ice stood up and took a few steps back and got lost in the darkness of the night. Inside the meeting. Ice only watched as the leaders were talking about Loki's matter, but he was upset because he knew he had to wait 24 hours. He thought he was going to the leaders, but he evaded. Riaz with his entourage were reluctant to go, but it also sounded next to him. Entourage and Odin's bodyguard, who I heard was called Riswasi. I always knew they would never go, only the stupidest go to kill him, Ice thought, and decided to leave, since he had nothing to do there and wait for the next few days. The following days. Ice looked at how the Gremory and Citri group were teleporting next to Issei, who only looked attentively as it was a teleporter, and he stopped to go to where the battle was, but a few small rocks fell, and the leaders had a good ear, just look at where they landed that rock, and looked at Ice obviously, the reactions didn't take long to wait. One part Gabriel was answering to see her son de Ella again next to Michael, but Serziches and Azazel together Ajuka put on serious faces. Who is that child? Auden said curiously. That child is the son of Seraphim Gabriel said Azazel seriously. Then he is the one who killed a lot of his faction said Auden, and receiving a nod from the two. Son, it's good to see you, Gabriel said happily, but that happiness didn't end. Well, it's a shame because I don't share that same happiness, I said coldly. What is he doing here said Ajuka seriously. Yesterday I had a mission, it was to kill Loki but your damn boss sent him to another dimension and I had to listen to all of his conversation, said Ice. They just opened their eyes in surprise since they didn't know T-feel Ice's presence at all. Minor at the meeting. Because he wants to kill Loki Auden said seriously. That's my business, old pervert, I answer so that he can cover it and get out of there since he wants to kill Loki as quickly as possible. What is Rissavam up to? Azazel said seriously, but they decided to leave hey, but the only person who stayed was Gabriel, who only had tears in his blue eyes. I'm very sorry, Ice, said Gabriel to make a magic circle and leave there. On the battlefield. Ice watched with the Gremory group and Citri was being humiliated by Loki, along with his son Fenrir and two more wolves with a copy of a Dragon King. Because it doesn't show him that he is a real wolf said Ice and behind him comes his faithful friend and traveling companion, but now he was more different than before his four legs had chains and pointed. He just stood next to Ice and when he was going they jumped, Ice stopped him and he looked at him and he pointed to a place and where Ice was pointing there was a two-person, a female and a male figure. It's Kuroka and Arthur these two are one of Volley's team members, said Ice to see how Kuroka chained Fenrir. And then take it away. See and kill those two wolves and the copy, I'll take care of Loki said Ice, and the wolf just nods to take a big leap and go where the copy of the Dragon King is, and that was observed by the Gremory and Citri group. That wolf isn't it, said Rito, surprised. So if that wolf is here it means that he is also here, said Rhea surprised at that and saw how Loki was hit by some rocks. Hello, Loki, I said with his 6 black wings and Loki, let's see who it was, he just stopped. Who are you damn and how dare you hit a god like me, Loki said seriously and annoyed. You know, I don't have time to play. I have something else to do before being a trash and insignificant person like you, said Ice and Loki, listening to what is less precious, it bothers him the most. Damn child, I will make you suffer, Loki said furiously to begin to fly to Ice, but he only dodged him with ease to kick him in the neck and then descended at great speed and stepped on his stomach. Loki just spit out a large amount of blood, but that same blood touched Ice's shoes, and he realized. Damn, your disgusting blood touched my shoe, said Ice, annoyed, kicking him in the chin, while Loki only hit the ground several times, but what no one had noticed, or so it was assumed the leaders of each faction he was in the air and behind them this Penemu, Gabriel and Seraphol, while Auden alone went to observe the death of his son. You know that Loki is the first one who will use this technique, you should be grateful that he will die in my hands, said Ice with a dark smile. Shut up, damn it, Loki said furiously as he rushed towards Ice, and he only understood his arm. Tornado said Ice and a strong current of air took Loki away. Loki only screamed in pain as he even felt like his body was being cut by the current. This is not over yet Ocean said Ice to see how the air current disappears and a large amount of water appears above Loki. Loki just fell into the water and as soon as he got up he started to get out of there, but to his surprise or rather terror, he saw that he was only surrounded by water, it seemed like he was in a real ocean. I'm not going to stay here, said Loki, a little scared, so he flew out of there, but what he didn't expect was to see a wave, or rather it looked like a fist. I'm sorry, but when he's here I can control your breathing, even your saliva, Loki I said with an arrogant smile, so that wave hit Loki. Loki was hit hard by that wave, but when he came out again he saw a large wave coming towards him. But that same wave turns into a great whirlpool while Loki was drowning inside. But don't worry, Loki, this will ensure that there is nothing left in you, said Ice with malice, but seeing that he had no words, they even felt more fear towards Ice, and Gabriel only clenched his fist, and tears fell into his eyes, so what his son had become that's what seeing how the dimension where Loki was, how that whirlpool became a tornado of water. My mission will be completed, now I will be cut into pieces, and then you will be destroyed by lightning, said Ice with an arrogant smile. Loki only heard Ice's voice and was filled with terror since he was going to die in the worst way, but the 3 leaders together with their companion, he only looked at it with fear, not even they could live, Auden only looked sad at the death of his son. At that point, they saw how Loki was taken to another place to be afraid of everything. There was a tornado of air and lightning around him and an ocean, but they saw how that small tornado was gigantic in size. Ah was the broken cry that signaled that he was suffering. That technique is called, it doesn't attack at the molecular level, not even a god could come out alive, so Loki dies once and for all, I said with an evil smile, so that everyone could see how Loki was consumed completely, not even a hair came out of there. He was very weak, I said in a whisper to see above, where he is, Azazel, Odin, Serziches, Michael, Seraphol, Penemu, along with the Grimoire and Citri group, and finally Gabriel who looked sad at his son. Now tell me old man, now that I've killed some of your people, I think that makes me your enemy, right, said Ice with an evil smile. No, because he was in the Cows Brigade, so there isn't a problem, you can rest assured, Odin said seriously. Seriously, but what a shame, I wanted to kill some Valkyrie, but hey, if you can't, you can't, said Ice. Ice wait please, Gabriel said sadly. Now what do you want, and if you come at me with that stupid thing, I'll forgive you, then you're wasting your time, I said seriously, and Gabriel looked alone down sadly, while tears fell into his blue eyes of him. I knew it, let's go, said Ice, and the wolf that was eating one of the Fenrir's son just nodded and left behind him. When Ice took the first step he fell to his knee while holding his head while giving a signal. Be pain. Damn what's happening to me this is past he said between shouts, and the leaders only came down to see what was happening to him, and Gabriel approached him. Ice finds you fine, Gabriel said worriedly to get closer than he was, but the wolf wouldn't allow it. Ice turned his gaze a little. Don't come closer, Mom. Two voices said at the same time, but the other voice only said Mom, but that was noticed by everyone who was surprised. Damn I said between screams to hit his forehead against the ground. But what's wrong with him? Said Azazel, surprised by the boy's behavior. I don't know, but something is happening to him, said Serziches seriously, but in that he feels how Ice's power was growing little by little. His power increases, Odin said seriously, seeing how Ice stood up with difficulty so that a wave of rays came out of his body. This is better, he said breathlessly to look behind him. This is not the time to kill him, it will be next time, Ice said and ran away at great speed. You heard him, he told me Mom, Gabriel said, containing his happiness. That's how it was, but what is happening to that child? Azazel said seriously. We don't know, but we have to find out, Odin said seriously, and everyone just agreed and left. With Ice. He continued running at a high speed, but his head still hurt, but he just wondered why Mom said to Gabriel, it was something that he himself did not understand at all. In Ice's mental space. Damn, for almost coming out, said Ice's negative emotions. I told you one day I'm going to get out of here, said Ice's good emotions. Because he loves her, forgive yourself for having that negative thought. You yourself created us through your negative emotions, and from there I was born, he told her. Well, that's my biggest mistake in life, said Ice's good emotions, and he just shook his head and left, leaving Ice alone. Chapter 7. Ice was alone on a rock meditating since after killing Loki, he began to meditate for 4 days, and that was only observed by Rissavam, who only had an evil smile, since he was plotting something for Ice, since now he no longer needed him, and alone, he wanted to steal that power that he had, that was his only objective, but he already had a perfect place for where he was going. It took away all that power from Ice in the raiding game of Rias against Diodora, and he knew that at this moment he was already attacked along with Crusoe. Ice can come, said Rissavam, and Ice just opens his eyes. What do you need, he said contentedly. You will see that at this moment Shalba and Crusoe are fighting with the leaders, I want you to come and help him, said Rissavam, and saw that Ice just stopped. He wants me to kill the leaders, Ice said with a cold voice. That's right, I want you to kill the leaders of the faction along with old Odin, said Rissavam, and Ice just nods and leaves. At that moment, Euclid comes out. He's already putting his plan into motion, said Euclid. Of course, all that power of that child, it will be all mine, said Rissavam to leave there. On the battlefield. The factions were receiving attack from the Cows Brigade due to Ria's raiding game, but she was warned by Vali, and luckily they prepared all their warriors, but Serziches, Azazel and Michael, together the girl from the 3 leaders was behind them. What's Shalba up now? Said Serziches. Luckily, that matter was only a trap for one person, Shalba said, surprised to everyone. So if this isn't for us, who is all this? Said Gabriel, surprised but curious along with the others. Well, who else is your dear son? Crusoe said, surprising everyone but even more so Gabriel, since this was a trap for his son, in that everyone feels a powerful energy and everyone looks down, and Ice will be angry as always, and Crusoe and Shalba just smile and go down. For this winged of Ice. Ice, be careful with the 2 of them, Gabriel said in a shout. I don't know what we're talking about, they are my ally, was Ice's cry, and Gabriel wanted to get the others down together, but they made a barrier. Why does he do that to you if you are not your partner? said Serafal. It would be serious, dear, he breaks the barrier, but not even a scratch could be broken. It's not obvious, Rissavam-sama only wanted this child's power, he never cared if he lived or not, Shalba said with an arrogant smile. Damn, I'm going to kill him, was Issei's next shout while he held his head. Don't do that to him, don't you see that he's just a little boy, Gabriel said through tears. Yes, a child, but his mind is already thousands of years old, said Krusuri. They are damned, Serzicha said angrily as the Gremory and Citri group along with Tannen and the other Mau arrived, watching as Ice held his head in pain. What's happening to Ice, brother? Riaz said, surprised. He only wanted him for his power, and at this moment he wants to leave him weak to steal all his power from him, Azazel said seriously, and everyone surprised. And they are not their same partner, said Tannen seriously, and when Serzichas answered him they saw how Ice stood with difficulty, but the strangest thing was that Ice's power was increased, even that was surprising to Shalba and Krusuri, who did not know what was happening. Damn, it hurts a lot, it hurts, I already left my head, it hurts, let the pain stop now please, said Ice while hitting his head against the floor. Leave him alone now, Gabriel said through tears, but they saw how Ice was changing shape. But that's past, said Ajuka surprised. We don't know that his aura continues to increase much more than before, Serzicha said scared as he began to retreat with the others, but from afar, that he was seen by Vali and his team who looked seriously at what Ice was suffering. Was Ice's cry for a wave of power to shoot out, but Shalba and Krusuri suffered a lot of damage, even the barrier had been damaged. When everyone looked up, everyone's eyes widened to see Ice's new transformation of him. Nobody said anything because I was surprised to see his eyes. That's Ice, said Riaz, terrified at seeing a demonic form for the first time in her life, and she was not the only one with her entourage of Ella, and the Citri Vali's team only approached the leaders. Naya, that's your other grandfather, Vali, said Kuroka, scared. That one is, but his aura is much more terrifying when he fights Kakabiel and Kateria, said Vali, scared. That child is the same son of Lucifer in the flesh, said Issei, watching as the demon looked at Shalba and Krusuri. On the battlefield. This is what you wanted because what you achieved, said Ice with a cold and demonic voice at the same time, and that scared everyone much more, but even more so for both of them, and when Shalba was speaking the demon appeared in front of them, so they both grabbed her leg and started it. He crashed into the ground while they were just screaming in pain. Ice threw Krusuri in the air to take flight with his wings and hit him in the face and sent him to the ground again, but Shalba just watched with her partner Ella, she was going to fall on top of him, and both of they only raised a curtain of earth. But that was N''T the only place where there was a fight, but inside Ice's mind. In Ice's mental space. The two eyes stared at each other. Damn, that stupid thing freed you, said Ice's negative emotions. That's right, now let's see how things go, said the good Ice. That's what I want to see, said the bad Ice to throw himself at another Ice, and he did the same, they both bumped their fists, even a current of air shot out, so that Ice only took a step back from him, and the bad guy just looked at him. What happened, said the bad Ice, but he did not receive a response. What he only received was a blow from Ice so that they could have it. A tough battle. Out of mental space. Ice was just torturing Shalba and Krusuri in the worst way. Because it has that shape, Gabriel said sadly. I'm sorry, Gabriel, but Ice is out of control, said Michael, sad for his sister. When it's over it will be our chance to kill him, Azazel said seriously and surprised everyone. Maybe Azazel is my son, crazy, said Gabriel in a shout. That son who only hit him, insulted him and despised him, how can he tell you that he is your son, Azazel said seriously, and Gabriel just stayed silent, although he won't admit it, Azazel was right about everything. We are not going to kill him, Azazel, we are going to leave him inconsistent, said Auden, and everyone agreed. It's okay, Azazel said. I have heard a cry of pain and they saw again where the battle was taking place, but they saw something that would leave him frozen forever. Shalba and Krusuri were walking without both their legs and arms. Then they heard Ice's cold voice. Now I said, stepping on both of their chests to tear off their heads next to the column, and without further ado, Ice dropped the heads of the two demons who died in the worst way possible for a true demon. I saw the leaders of each faction and they noticed Ice's gaze and they prepared to fight, but what he did not expect was that Ice would begin to scream in pain, while holding his head the leaders looked at each other, and they just acknowledged and they took out their wings to go down to the ground, but they stayed a little away from Ice. In Ice's mental space. The two Ice were extremely hurt, but the bad one was more so, who only looked with hatred at the good Ice. He really wants to take your body again, Ice, I said badly. That's right, I want my body, just the thing, I just opened my eyes, said Ice well and saw how his counterpart just sat on the ground. You win, Ice, if he wants to take your body again, do it once and for all, I said badly. Because that change, said Ice, well, somewhat distrustful. The thing is, if you and I keep fighting, neither of us are going to win since you and I are the same, said Bad Ice with a smile. Ray said Ice to start walking, but Ice only turned to look at his counterpart one last time. This is not goodbye, but not until later, said Ice. Bad to leave there. Out of Ice's mind. He was still holding his head well. From one moment to the next Ice detransformed and fell to the ground so that everyone could approach him, and Gabriel just grabbed him in his arm and put him between his chest. Ice, it's okay, please don't leave me again, said Gabriel through tears while this was observed by everyone who looked sadly at Gabriel. Chapter 8. The leaders only looked at Ice. Without a doubt, that child had a monstrous power that would humiliate anyone, but at this moment he was being hugged by Gabriel, who was released because his son was not reacting, or so it was thought, since Gabriel and the others began to hear a moan of pain. He's already awake, Azazel said a little seriously since he didn't know if he could attack him. You know, Gabriel, I would give it to you to leave it on the floor because it could hurt you, Seraphil said, and she just denied it, and without it being necessary, she received an attack from her son because of the pain he caused her in the past. Everyone saw how Ice opened his eyes completely, but there was something strange in his eyes, those eyes that once had no life, now those eyes have a shine of life. When Ice opened his eyes he saw all the leaders of each faction, and he felt that someone was hugging him, and his head felt like a comfortable and soft place, but his face felt something wet, it was like it was raining, or so it seemed since he looked up or saw that it was Gabriel crying. I saw that he was in his mother's arm, he just got up quickly and moved a little away from her and the other leaders, but Gabriel got up from the ground and began to walk towards Ice under the gaze of everyone. Gabriel had close to Ice and knelt down while tears fell on the ground. Ice, please forgive me, I can no longer live without you not being by my side. You don't know how many centuries I regretted for getting that right. You don't know how many years I cursed myself for not appreciating what I had at my side, the great treasure that only you. I wanted a smile from this stupid woman whose hatred led her to lose her most precious treasure in life, and that's your Ice. I'm sorry, said Gabriel, crying without stopping, and the leaders only felt sorry for the seraph. Ice didn't know what to say, the proud war that was once his mother disappeared completely and tears fell into his blue eyes. The leaders could not believe it, that child who only kills by kill, was now crying because of Gabriel's words, and she also looked up to see her son crying for the first time after so long a century. I just wanted a hug from you and a smile from you, that was what I spent in life with my grandfather, but you always hit me without knowing your reasons, but when I heard that you were raped by him, Demon King, I understood that he had the right to hate me completely, said Ice between tears, and Gabriel only let go more together with the others who watched that scene. Even Tannen. That will be what I was never a mother, not even when you were born I carried you in my arm, and it's something I regret, Gabriel said through tears, but they saw how Ice approached Gabriel, and the most surprising thing was Ice gave the woman a hug. Hell in heaven. Mom, I always missed you, forgive me for being the son of a demon king, the person who hurt you a lot, and not being the son of a union of a man that you could love, Ice said between tears, and Gabriel, only that hug corresponds, while tears also fell. In your eyes. No, Ice, I am the person who owes you to apologize for the harm I have caused you all this time, said Gabriel, crying. They both remained like that without doing anything, neither of them wanted to separate themselves from that hug that they had wanted for thousands of years. Back the leaders just looked at it with a smile, but from one moment to the next a door opens and a huge dragon comes out, and Ice only separates himself from that hug and sees the dragon with a smile and validation and ritual. He just comes to see. Who is that dragon, said a curious Right. He is Great Red, known as Dragons of Dragons, the true dragon god of dreams, said Ice with a smile. How do you know him, said Rito. It's one of my big dreams, defeat Great Red with my own hands, said Ice. That's also my dream, I become the next dragon god, said Volley with confidence in his word when a gothic loli appears. Who is she? Riaz said. Office, the dragon goddess of infinity and the leader of the Cows Brigade, said Volley. Big Red, it's been a long time, Office said with a blank look, and from one moment to the next she goes up in smoke. Let's go guys, said Volley, and his team just nods, and they both leave. We have to go too, said Riaz, and her entourage just nodded, and the leaders just prepared a magic circle. Ice is coming with us, said Gabriel with a smile, since he was finally able to reconcile with his son Ella, and Ice just looked around and saw what his friend Ella was looking for, and he just approached. We're leaving, Ice said, and the wolf just nods, and Ice just looks behind him and gives his mother a smile. Of course, Mom, Ice said with a smile to run into Gabriel's arms, and she just hugged him with a smile. While they were leaving, Risivam was watching with a funny smile, and next to him was Euclid with the same smile, since he already had another plan if the first one didn't work. Their Ice is still the same child you were thousands of years ago, said Risivam with a smile, but in his hand, he had a remote control. When you plan to use it, Risivam Sama Euclid said with a smile, and Risivam just looks at him. Let's let him be happy for now, but very soon he will be with me again, since I knew that he wouldn't be able to do that, said Risivam with the same smile. And now what are we doing? Said Euclid. First, we must find the Holy Grail to revive our army, and I know it will not be very difficult since it is in the vampire faction, and when we have our soldier again we will attack Office, and we will steal half of his power, and the third we will control my brother again, said Risivam with an evil smile. Then we're leaving, Euclid said, and he just agreed, and they both left there. But Issei and Gabriel. They both went to another place so they could talk like mother and son. It's happy to have you in my arm, Issei, Gabriel said with a happy smile, and a tear came out in his eyes. I'm happy too, Mom, I'm very happy, said Issei with a smile of joy at being reconciled, to fall asleep in Gabriel's arms, while she only caressed Issei's hair to give him a kiss on the forehead. Now we will be happy, Issei, now I will give you all the love you wanted, Gabriel said with a smile. Chapter 9. It had already been 2 weeks since Issei was able to do it again, since it was thousands of years ago, but Gabriel was the happiest of all, since he was finally able to spend time happily like every mother and son, but where there is happiness there is sadness and suffering. All the leaders were at a party together with all the seraphim, cadre, Mao and Aden, together some of their warrior, since they were celebrated for 2 hard weeks, they could finally face the Chaos Brigade, without the help of Issei, but as Issei was on his side, he had much more advantage than before. But what no one knew was that Risivam and Euclid observed with a mocking smile, since they thought that he was defeated with the help of Issei, but it was the wrong thing to do, they already had everything they needed, but there was only one simple thing missing, that was Issei. Come on, Euclid and Krom Kruich, said Risivam, and they just nod, and they just throw a sphere of power towards the party. The leaders saw that he was being attacked and were on guard because they did not know who it could be. Everyone looked at the 3 figure and put on a serious face. Risivam, Euclid and Krom Kruich, said all the leaders seriously. Now what do you want? He said seriously. Well, I'm coming to see my dear older brother Issei, Risivam said with a smile, and everyone just gave a confident smile. My son doesn't want to be with you anymore, and he's not your brother, you heard, said Gabriel, seriously but at the same time confident, and Issei just acknowledged. Well, it's a shame that this whole castle is collapsing, said Risivam, taking out a remote control, and the leaders thought he played a bass drum or something of style. What do you plan to do with that control? Azazel said seriously, but for a strange reason that he felt, he only looked at Issei since he felt that this was going to happen to him. Well, as I said, I came for this, it will be by hook or by crook, said Risivam to press the button to see that no one did anything or anything happened. What the hell is that laugh? Serziches could not finish speaking as they saw how Issei gave a heartbroken scream. Ah, was Issei's cry as his power went much higher than before. Risivam Sama, that should happen, Euclid said with fear. No, it was just that his eyes glowed green, but never that his power increased. Something is going wrong, said Risivam with fear. Let's get out of here, that boy is going to explode with power, Krom Kruich said seriously, and they just agreed and both just walked away a little, since he didn't want to miss what was happening. Issei was Gabriel's cry for her, but her brother held her and they did the same, they took out their wings together with the others, and they came out of there. Let me go, Gabriel said with tears, but his brother did not pay attention to him, and everyone saw how Issei had been left alone, while his aura grew too much. In Issei's mind. The bad Issei just looked at that with an evil smile, since this time he was going to finish his good emotions once and for all, and he didn't wait much since a body had fallen, and he just approached with a slow step. Tell me, Issei, I really enjoyed spending time with your mother, Gabriel said Issei's evil emotions. Now what do you want? Said Issei, good to feel how his chest was pierced by another Issei's sword. Well, remember that I didn't say goodbye and you did, well this is the real goodbye, Issei, you were happy for 2 weeks, but now I'll take care of everything, said Issei, bad to plunge his sword deeper into him, to brutally remove him, and without further ado, the good Issei just died. Goodbye, Issei, it was nice to meet you, he said with a smile as he walked towards where his body was. Out of Issei's mind. And he no longer screamed in pain, while his aura continued to grow until he had no more power. At that point, Issei's body was surrounded by a great tornado of darkness, while his shirt was completely destroyed. He showed Issei's assault mode again, but this time there was something strange, his gaze reflected pure evil. Everyone looked at Issei with surprise, since the last time they saw him in that state when he killed Kateria and Kakabiel, but they also saw his smile, which was pure evil. What happened to Issei? Gabriel said, surprised to see the state of her son, but what she doesn't know is that this time she lost her son completely. Issei just formed some wings of darkness and went directly to where everyone was while he had 10 things in his hand. It's good to be back, said Issei with a serious and cold look. What is I talking about? Serziches said seriously but at the same time with fear. You don't realize, Mahu Lucifer, that ice that he had with you in those 2 weeks no longer exists, I said simply, and everyone was surprised by that. What do you want, he says, if you are in front of a son, said Gabriel, surprised by his son's words. You don't realize that, destroy the good emotions, now what you see is only the bad emotions, which is me, I said with an arrogant smile. Everyone was now surprised but at the same time scared. What do I have to do with your eyes, said Ice, looking behind him and seeing the aforementioned together with the others, scared by Ice's look at him. You thought I didn't know that he wanted to control me, the other Ice would have been fooled, but not me, they just used that to free me. I must completely give you grace, that's why I let you live one more day with your friends, since very soon you will see how your organization will fail before my hand, said Ice. Ice, what are those 10 fragments that you have in your hand? Michael said. Ah, that's a good question, this was good emotions, let's say it's a part of my power that has been completely released, Paloma said Ice with the same smile. Well, see you very soon, since now all the facts will fall before my hand, ha 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 ha. Ice laughed to leave, leaving everyone surprised. He wasn't speaking a lie, Drake said seriously, and they just agreed. Because you chose that path, said Gabriel with tears to see how now his son no longer existed. Risavim, Euclid and Crom Cruich left Hay because, like the leaders, they were also surprised by what just happened, even Risavim regretted pressing the button. The leaders only had a very important meeting since everyone knew that Ice was not someone who could be defeated easily, nor was he someone weak, although they will wonder what he was going to do with that 10 fragment that he had in his hand. Without them knowing what. Ice was going to make an army of 9 very powerful people, and he was going to be their captain. Chapter 10. You could see a white-haired man who was sitting on a large rock, while his face had a big smile, which only reflected pure evil, since at this moment he was going to be one of his dear brother, just to get up from the rock he was sitting, while his back formed great wings of darkness, and in his right hand a great sword was twice its size. Only to make a great leap, and I was blown towards the Cows Brigade from its base, and when he arrived where Ice he knew very well what this Risavim was going, his smile only increased. Since below him, Euclid was rising, speaking with his right hand, he only created a sphere of darkness to throw it towards that base. Some realized that sphere, only to create a great magical circle, and in the same way, the sphere that had been thrown, crossed the barrier, even the second barrier that was in case of attack as it was happening at this moment. Some died and another survived when the great layer of dust had vanished out of nowhere. A ray of darkness began to approach, and when terrified raised a little dust, and when the dust had vanished, everyone opened their eyes in terror, since in front of them was none other than Ice himself. But the most terrifying thing was that behind Ice there was a being made of darkness and eyes red like blood itself. Ice only looked at him with a smile, and Rose only told some of his subordinates to bring all their reinforcements. He even told them to get more people among other things, since he knew very well that Ice was going to eliminate him, but they saw that Ice alone. He yawned, as a sign that he was bored. Only to see behind Risravim thousands and thousands of magical circles had formed, and from there only a demon and fallen one came out among other races, and forming a line ready for battle against Ice, and they started to run. Ice just saw that, his smile only increased. Now he was going to get rid of his boredom, only to start running at a high speed and kill many of the rising soldiers, while killing them in a very cruel way. Each soldier went towards Ice, with a sword or against something, just to kill Ice, but he only dodged it, but at the same time killed. Risavim just watched as his soldier fell one by one. He had regretted crushing that damn remote control that day, just to control Ice, but the only thing that it awakened was a being that had no heart with anyone, and it was not the only thing. Even the evil dragons, even his strongest dragon that is at the same level or surpasses the 2 celestial dragons, was being humiliated. And finally Ice had ended his life by cutting off his head with that great sword, but some demon had rushed towards Ice, but he just releases his aura, jumps and cuts a demon in half. Was Ice's laughter, since for him, this was very funny, but without Risavim and Euclid realizing it. When Ice killed the demons it only formed a large mountain of corpses and only created a large wings of darkness, and it is in the air and creates a large sphere of darkness, and only to throw it towards them, and by instinct Risavim and Euclid took out their wings to be in the air, and only to see how their army was dying because of that sphere. When the sphere had consumed most of the demons and fallen, and among other races, a large mountain of corpses had formed, and the one made by Ice joined together, and only for Ice to come down and remain at the top of the mountain of the dead. Risavim and Euclid only trembled with fear, or rather the terror that he was feeling at that moment. They just watched as Ice got out of there while he was walking. The 2 of them only took a few steps back, only so that from one moment to the next, they had Ice at their side. In front of them. I want to play with you, said Ice with a big smile, while his tooth was sharp like a dragon's. Only a moment later, he released his powerful aura and a swirl of darkness covered Ice. The 2 of them just swallowed their own saliva, since they knew very well what was going to happen. Ice, the same whirlpool, had vanished and revealed his famous assault mode. He only looked at Risivam and Euclid with a look of pure hatred, but at the same time a very cold one. These two wanted to leave Hay, but Ice had created a force field so that they would not leave. Out of nowhere Ice appears in front of them, only to bury his hand in Euclid's chest, only to rip out his heart, and he just falls dead and Ice just threw Euclid's heart on the ground just to step on it. Ice, wait, we can talk, said Rising with pure fear. No thank you, I don't want to talk to inferior beings like your Rise. He was just someone weak to me. I wonder why those pathetic factions would hold so many meetings just to finish you off if you are so weak, Ice said with hatred in his face. His voice, but at the same time with a tone of mockery, and when Risivam was speaking, he only screamed in pain since Ice had hit him and then kicked him in the back and only to throw him up, and he only jumped to he is higher than Risivam, and he only forms his hand in the shape of a mallet just to hit his head and so that he just buries himself in the ground. But some of his rib was more than broken, just turning around just to see how Ice went down faster than a bullet and only to bury his two legs in Rising Vim's stomach, which made him spit out blood, but also a torn scream and even tears he began to release from the pain he was being at that moment. Then he felt how Ice grabbed his two arms and did it. Back doing so, he screams like a madman and only to feel like Ice had broken his two arms. Kill me now, Risivam shouted in pain, and he wanted me to kill him, and he no longer wanted to continue suffering from the torture that Ice was giving him. That's how I like it when you beg me to kill you, because now I'm going to do it for you, said Ice with a smile, only to turn Risivam around and step on his back and grab his head and start pulling very hard while he listens. The Risivam's turn cry until finally he rips off his head and only to raise his face. I know very well that he was seeing me through a magic circle since I arrived at this place. See how the Cows Brigade turned out. Oh sorry, I say, former Cows Brigade, since now they don't exist at all. Just wait, I will soon come for you just to take your head as my trophies, said Ice with a big smile, just to create some wings of darkness and leave there. And the facts. Everyone saw from the beginning that Ice had brought out his aura, but his face was full of fear and terror. They saw with their own eyes how the Cows Brigade had ceased to exist forever, but one Gabriel was crying to see that he was gone. Had he converted his son just because of his mistakes of her in the past? Although he always wondered why he had never felt the counterpart of Ice when he had with her in those 2 weeks. We have to prepare, a voice resounded, and they saw that it was Azazel with a very serious face, and everyone could only nod since he knew very well who he had to face, and a being that has no heart and no mercy for anyone. A being that he had been raised by the same Risivam, but that same being had killed him in a very cruel way. Chapter 11. Ice continued flying happily to finish off his half-brother's Cows Brigade. He was not going to deny that killing him was the best thing he did in his life, and he was only missing a single person who had the blood of Lucifer, and that was nothing less than Volley Lucifer, but out of nowhere he stops and looks down at him. Some could tell him that he was crazy just by looking at some rocks, or so he thought if they were a supernatural being. He just descended towards the ground, and with just his aura, he broke a barrier that was around, and when he touched solid ground, he was in front of a cave, and without further ado, he began to walk inside. Only to feel a demonic presence, and it was very strong and killed curiosity him to know who had that powerful and sinless aura. But with just one blow he destroyed a rock wall, and from there a curtain of earth rose up, and when the earth had disappeared, he saw a beautiful girl, but the most curious thing was that she was lying in a bed without having to sleep. This he only got closer than he was and just looked at her face. His hair color was purple, a suit of nobility and a desired body. He decided to give his end to the girls, and only raised his right hand, and only for them to grow some very long nails that looked like sharp knives, and without further ado, he was going to bury his nails in the forehead of the girl's head. But out of nowhere he stopped, and without a few more millimeters, the girl would already be dead if it weren't for Ice. He was there, only to return his nails to normal, and only to give a long sigh. He just grabs the girl and enters her arm, and only to give a whistle, and out of nowhere his friend and traveling companion appears. He just puts the girl on top of his friend, and the wolf could only nod and left wherever he was. The two of them always had in their lives. This one I decided to go into the cave again to find something else or something that they could use, since I was really curious, who was that girl? But it was just a waste of time since he had not found anything that could be useful to him, and when he was going to leave, out of nowhere, a notebook fell and he just grabbed that notebook, and it was more of a diary. He simply used a little of his magic since he knew very well that this diary was not at all common and could only be opened with magic, and without further ado, he opened the diary and saw that it only had 1 page written on it and nothing else. Annoying. Hello, I don't know who is reading, but I hope you are a very good person to help my friend. Her name is Ingvild Leviathan. She is a direct descendant of the original Leviathan. She has a strange disease that little can happen to her, that makes her have a very deep sleep. She is now 25 years old, completely asleep, and I don't know what time she can wake up. But the only thing I ask of you is that you take care of her, she is very kind, she is a very good person furthermore, she never had a normal life ever since her stepfather found out that Ingvild was a demon, he began to mistreat her, even making her have a cross chain, one of the weaknesses of demons. I know it's not much information. But I want my friend to be well. I know very well that I am already dead since some exorcist was following me to kill Ingvild, but I am going to sacrifice myself for her. I only ask that you take care of her, nothing more. Ice finished reading, but the most curious thing was that there were tears on his cheek. It was something that he had been surprised by, since he had killed his good emotions, only for nothing more to come out. But that was not the point, she also experienced something that he would not wish on anyone, not even his worst enemy, but part of him was telling her that they will not take him into account, but the other part of he felt regret, since he tortured his enemy in a cruel way, he even killed his half-brother in a very cruel way, although he took the wrong path. But he was also taking that same path as Rissavam, he throws the diary, without a doubt that diary was making him think like his old self, and he didn't want that. He only grabbed the diary again and created great wings of darkness, and only to jump 15 meters and fly out of there and go where the girl was, since he also felt something in her, as if they had a sacred gear and he was going to try something that could work so that the girl could finally wake up and do what she wants. Ice cave. The wolf had arrived at the cave and left the girl's body on a bed made of tree leaves, and he alone lay down on the ground, waiting for his companion and friend, and waiting for about 10 minutes, and out of nowhere Ice appears in the air, and he decided to land on the ground, and looked at the wolf and the girl in his bed, or rather in the bed of leaves. He just gave a sigh. Ice only saw the wolf and he only acknowledged and left, so that he was next to the girl while with his right hand he touched her forehead, while darkness began to surround the girl, and in the same way Ice was doing it, and the nothing just falls next to the girl as a sign that she was unconscious. In the unconsciousness of Ingvild. Ice just looks around, he had to admit, the place was really beautiful, and a path of pink and some purple flowers that made the beautiful place stand out more. Then he starts to hear a girl's voice, but it was sung, and that made him, he was curious, and decided to go where the song came from, and when he got to where the song came from he sat behind a tree. Just to listen to that song that was really beautiful in Ice's view. Finding someone like you. But that simplicity that characterizes you. It has not been an easy task because you are unique. You convince my heart to love you completely. You conquer every part of my mind and my body. You make my life have more meaning. You make me want to be with you every day. You are like the clear water that rains from the sky. I love you because I want you to love me. Because there is no one more beautiful like you on this earth. And you make me dream every time you kiss me. And it makes me tremble. Who intimidates me every time he caresses me, you and no one else. Who satisfies all my desires in terms of skin. And makes me feel proud simply if they see us together. Walking hand in hand. You're my reason for being. You're like the clear water that rains from the sky. I love you because I want you to love me. Because there is no one more beautiful like you on this earth. And you make me dream every time you kiss me. And it makes me tremble. Who intimidates me every time he caresses me, you and no one else. Who satisfies all my desires in terms of skin. And makes me feel proud simply if they see us together. Walking hand in hand. You're my reason for being. The girl had finished singing, but there was sadness in her voice, since she was in that place for a long time. She had sung the same song more than 50 times in her life, and she was always alone, oh so it seemed, since she began to hear applause. Obviously that surprised the girl a lot, and she just looked behind her, seeing a short white-haired boy with a sad face. The girl just opened her eyes in surprise, since she knew very well that no one could enter her mental space. She just watched as Ice began to approach her and was in front of her. It's a very beautiful song, Ingvild Leviathan, said Ice with a smile, something in common not to see, since his smile is always one of malice or another smile, and the girl hearing who said his name was very surprised, but I decide the boy's greeting corresponds. Hello, Ingvild greeted with a somewhat nervous smile since he had N' spoken to anyone for a long time, but I decided to ask what his name was. Excuse me, how I called you, Ingvild asked, very curious. Ice Lucifer, I said seriously, but he surprised Ingvild a lot because he knew who that child was. He was Lucifer's son. Before Ingvild could say another question or word, Ice decided to tell him his entire life from the day he was born until the day he had become at this time. Ingvild was really surprised by what he had just heard. In front of him was the unwanted son of the seraph Gabriel, since Ice also told him that Lucifer had raped her, and in that raped a hybrid of a demon and an angel, but now he was a fallen angel. But she also felt sad for Ice, since he suffered like her, but not as much as he suffered. I'm so sorry, it was N' my intention that they will remember your whole life, Ice, Ingvild said sadly, and Ice just put his hand on her head. That already happened now, I'm just looking for revenge, nothing more, I said with a serious tone, but Ingvild just looks at him. And what will he do when he fulfills his revenge? He will live with thousands and thousands of innocent people in his head, said Ingvild with a serious tone, something that left Issei speechless since he had not really thought about it. Furthermore, he could live with thousands of dead people. In his head of him and in that dead man he can see a boy and a girl who had nothing to do with his problem of him. Besides, the only people who should get even were Gabriel and Michael and no one else. Your face tells me something else, maybe they lived hell because of your former race, since now I am a fallen angel, revenge is not good Issei, revenge brings more revenge, said Ingvild with the same tone, leaving Issei fallen again. Without them realizing it, I had thought about that word too much. I just wanted to get you out of your long sleep, nothing more, I said with a serious tone, but still he was still thinking. But how do I have this disease? Ingvild said, confused. You have a sacred gear, I'm more than sure your sacred gear will wake up suddenly, I said seriously, and she just nodded, but she was happy since she was going to see the outside world again. Issei only surrounded the girl in darkness and only to hear a crack, a sign that something had broken. Issei only saw how they both began to disappear from there, a sign that he was going to return to the real world. Chapter 12. Issei had only gotten up from the place where he had fallen unconscious to just sit down and then saw how Ingvild began to open his beautiful orange eyes, which he did and for a strange reason made Issei have a strong heartbeat, even a blush that was something impossible for Issei. The girl only saw Issei and sat down in the place where she was. This is true, I'm awake, Ingvild said with joy, even tears began to come out of her beautiful eyes. Issei was amazed because the girl was happy, although he understood her too much. He just put his hand on Ingvild's cheeks alone. To start, wipe her tear, and Ingvild realized it and only a blush formed on her cheek. Thank you was the only thing that came out of Ingvild's beautiful lips. There's no point, I can ask you a question, of course if you want to answer it, said Issei. And what is it? Ingvild asked curiously. How many years have you been asleep? Issei asked with curiosity and she just lowered her head in sadness, and when Issei was speaking, Ingvild responded. 100 years, he told him, and Issei just opened his eyes in surprise. Without a doubt some sleeping for 100 years surprises everyone. But now she's awake, she can make a life for you like you would like so much, Issei said just to get up from the ground, something that Ingvild did the same, so he was alone in front of Issei. Your sacred gear is a very powerful one, it is a Longinus type, and its name is Nerid Kiri, it can control the dragons, even the seas, said Issei seriously and very surprised. Ingvild knows what his sacred gear was. How do you know about that? I asked, very curious. I had thousands of years studying all kinds of sacred gear, I know most of its name, and of course I can't forget the most powerful, the 13 Longinus, Issei said seriously, and Ingvild could only nod. Issei, before you named my sacred gear, you asked me that now that I'm awake I can do whatever I want, right? Ingvild said curiously, and Issei just nodded his head, but what Issei didn't expect was that Ingvild grabbed him by the hand. He put his hands on her waist and put his two hands around Issei's neck, so they both started dancing. Clearly Ingvild had much more experience than Issei. He only followed Ingvild's steps unconsciously to such an extent that it seemed like a couple, one of the other, only for Issei to give it a whirl. Ingvild, and she did it. Ingvild had a big smile on his lip, and not even Issei knew it, since just like Ingvild, he had a smile on his lip, as a sign that he was having fun since he had never danced in his life, and on the day he was born the only person who danced was with his grandfather of him God, and in that he remembers his grandfather's words. Flash black. You could see a child dancing with a big smile, but around him he looked at them with hatred, but it was something that the little boy ignored. While he was jumping through whatever cloud there was, a man was approaching, his hair was blonde and blue eyes and imposing armor. He just watched with a funny smile as the child danced or jumped from the cloud, although part of him just watched the child with sadness, since he was a product of grape even. So, he knew that the child had nothing to do with that, and just look at how the boy fell from the cloud, that made them let out a small funny smile, and seeing how the boy approached him he just opened his arms, as a sign that he was going to receive him, and the little boy just jumped in his arm, and he catches it. Grandpa, can I ask you a question? Said the boy curiously. Of course Issei, what do you want to ask? God said with a kind smile. I will have a person who loves me, said little Issei with curiosity. God remained silent for a moment only to let out an amused smile. Of course Issei, we all have a person who loves us, and I'm sure that in the future he will have a girl who loves you with his heart, and I'm sure that the two of you will dance and sing together, God said with a sincere smile, and Issei, he could only nod happily. Just to get off his grandfather's arm and without anyone seeing, Issei had out some wings, it was taken T white. No, it was a totally beautiful wing, its wings had several colors that even shone. No doubt some angel who saw those wings would be very envious, but God only gave a long sigh, only to change the color of Ice's wings to a completely white, something that made Ice have a sad face, only to save your wings. Grandpa, why doesn't my mom want to see my wings? I said with a very sad tone. Ice, I'm sure Gabriel would love to see those wings, but now is not the time, said God, but he knew one thing very well, without Gabriel seeing those wings he would have much more hatred towards Ice, and he could only nod, but at that point, an angel approached God and something said in his ear, and he just acknowledged. Well, Ice, I have to go, God said, and Ice just agreed so that God would disappear in an ace of light. Who will be the person who will love me? Ice asked himself, only to smile later. End of flashback. Ice had stopped remembering that part of him, but for him it was a surprise. He was sure that he had killed his good emotions. Oh, maybe that 10 fragment that he had absorbed was so that he could recover his good emotions little by little, and without further ado. Just open your eyes, seeing that he had finished dancing. She dances very well, Ice, Ingvild said with a smile while she had a little sweat, since Ella she was used to dancing alone, but now it was very different, she was finally able to dance with someone. Thank you was his only word of Ella that left his lip of Ella, but unconsciously a tear of blood passed on his right cheek of Ella, something that surprised Ingvild. She just put her right hand on Ice's cheek where that tear of blood came out and wiped that tear away. Please don't cry, Ingvild said with a sincere smile, and Ice could only nod. Sorry was her only word, but Ingvild just shook her head. At the faction meeting. They were talking about a very serious topic, and that was about Ice, but it was not the only thing that was there, since all the world leaders were gathered, since they showed him the video that Ice had killed Arisivum, as if without it was an ant, but obviously also his aura that had also reached his features. Although Gabriel always wanted to protest since he did not want to see his son all hurt again, since he was going to bring back memories of the past, in that he heard the words of Zeus, saying that he should kill Ice, something that everyone accepted, but less Michael and Gabriel, but they didn't want to hurt Ice again. Well then, in this 3 week we will meet again, to kill the son of Seraphim Gabriel, and the bastard Lucifer, Shiva said with a serious tone, and they just agreed. There really is no other way, Gabriel said in a whisper, but like everyone else his hearing had improved, he had heard what Gabriel said. There isn't, you didn't see the video, he himself destroyed the Cows Brigade, said Zeus with a serious tone. But if they hadn't let you carry away your hatred towards that child, at this moment they would have you, Yasaka said with a serious tone. Because you don't know how it feels to be raped by a man you don't like, and who also has his son, Gabriel said in a scream, left in the room in silence. But, it's something I regret now, that child. Besides, that child is my son, whether he likes it or not, I am his mother, I want him back in my arm, like that 2 weeks he had with me, said Gabriel between small tears in his eyes. But I'm going to make him come back like before, even if he wants to attack me, I'm going to be at his side, I'm going to do what I couldn't do for thousands of years, said Gabriel, just to leave that room and leave him alone. Everyone was surprised, but even so he was not going to change his plans, not at all. Chapter 13. You could see a white-haired man talking to a purple-haired girl, they were Ice and Ingvild talking about their lives, how they were in the past, they both shared the same thing, they both suffered since they were children, they sometimes felt happiness, but that his happiness has been destroyed. Ice without realizing that every conversation and every word of Ingvild caused his desire to destroy the factions to be completely eliminated. I understand, no matter what happens and even if I destroy the facts, my suffering will not go away at all, I said with his head bowed, feeling regret in his voice for the first time, and Ingvild only nodded with a smile. That's it, do you think we forget about the supernatural and live a life together, Ingvild said with a smile, but she had a blush on her cheek, since she was almost telling him to be a couple. Ice just turned to think, since his childhood he was always in the fight, so he decided to have a normal life as he was doing. It's okay, Ingvild, I agree to have a life together, a quiet life, forgotten about all the supernatural, said Ice with a sincere smile. Just to understand his hand, and Ingvild did the same to just shake his hand, and each of them promised each other, each of them forgot their past and lived in the present, and of course they liked that idea, both of them, but they started to think about where I could live. In his new life he and Ice told him that they could start from Mexico, after all that country was very beautiful, and Ingvild accepted with a smile. Only for Ice to make a magic circle towards the human world, of course with normal clothes, since he did not want to be seen with supernatural clothes, so they decided to buy clothes first, since Ice had an infinite card that Risivim had before. To kill him, so each of them bought almost the entire store and some discomfort for the trip. When the two of them had their thing ready, they went to the airport to buy their tickets to go to Mexico, so they had a 6-hour flight until they finally arrived in Mexico and went to a hotel near the beach. Ice and Ingvild only smiled since that hotel was going to be their new home. They only entered the place, but it was the center of attention. But Ice and Ingvild ignored that look and only gave him his room, which was number 125. Bellup would take him to his room, which was in front of the beach, something that Ice and Ingvild liked. Without a doubt the view is beautiful. It doesn't seem like tomorrow. Let's go to the beach, said Ice with a smile, and Ingvild just nodded excitedly, since it would be her first time going swimming at a beach. I'm sleepy, I'm going to my room, said Ingvild, tired from the trip, and Ice could only nod, saying that she was going to stay longer on the balcony, and without further ado Ingvild left one of the rooms in the room, and Ice stayed. Watching the sky. Ah, this doesn't seem bad at all, Ice said with a smile, feeling the beach breeze on his face, and without further ado he went to his room, only to see that it was very comfortable. It even had a view of the beach, and without it is more difficult, and he falls completely asleep. The next day. Ice had gotten up. For the first time in so many centuries he was able to sleep in a soft and very comfortable bed, and he only grabbed the phone and ordered food to his room, and then hung up the phone, only to go take a bath, and then leave there and coming out to the living room where Ingvild was sitting, and she just looks at him. Good morning, Ice, Ingvild greeted kindly, and Ice only returned the greeting. After someone knocked on the door of his apartment, Ice just went to the door, seeing that it was a beautiful girl with his order from him. Ice just grabbed the tray of your order, and then the girl left. Ice and Ingvild had finished eating, and they decided to go to the beach, and luckily for them, there was sun, something that they liked. Ah, both of them. Ingvild only showed his swimsuit, and he is on the edge of the beach and a beach ball. Some of the men on the beaches were amazed by Ingvild's well-developed body, some had even fainted by Ingvild's beauty, something that bothered Ice a lot. He just got up from his place and became very attached to Ingvild. Making Ingvild's chest touch Ice's pectorals, something that made them both blush and greatly bothered the men who were on the beach. He even wanted to hit Ice, but he said it with a simple gesture. Everyone said it. Come closer and I'll kill you. Some only trembled from that cold look, which would make even the bravest of them all tremble from pure fear. Ingvild only gave a sigh, only to push Ice into the water. To begin with, he threw water at him, something Ice did the same. They began to play like children who never had a childhood. 3 weeks later. Ice had completely abandoned his idea to destroy all the factions in the world, since someone made him change that idea a lot, and that was none other than Ingvild. Leviathan Ice had completely fallen in love with her, and she had also fallen in seized from Ice. Even he had regretted killing his other self. It appears that he had worked with his other self, that is why he had absorbed 10 fragments, but that was not the point. He no longer wanted to know anything about the world. Where the wine didn't even want to know that they decided to live as a human. He had even sealed all his powers, so that not even a supernatural being would bother him, and they would live their lives in peace, like the two of them wanted them to be. But what the two of them didn't know was that the peace they had was going to be ruined by supernatural beings. Since the most powerful of each faction made a great anti-human barrier, even Office was in that place, helping to kill Ice, but Michael and the Angel faction, since they decided not to participate in that battle against Ice. Serziches, Azazel, Aten, Zeus, Anubis, Shiva, Yasaka and Office together with their companion, who was also extremely powerful, only launched a large ball of power that completely destroyed the hotel that Ice and Ingvild were in. Half the city had been carried by that powerful energy. They just smiled, thinking that they had already won, since they knew very well that no one was going to survive a big explosion like that. Oh, that's what they were supposed to do, since the rubble that the big explosion had left behind is gone completely. Wounded while breathing heavily, only to fall to the ground, totally injured. But with her strength of will she stood up and headed towards the rock, only to pull out a totally injured Ingvild. Plus what Ice was, he only put her away from a safe place, and only to look up, only to see thousands and thousands of supernatural beings, and more their leaders were in front of him. Because he attacks me, without me he wouldn't have done anything to you, and much less to the Nordic, Olympic and Egyptian faction, Ice said in a shout. You're a danger to us, even destroying the Cows Brigade. That is why the other factions decided to join forces to finish you off, said Zeus in a serious tone. Also, we finished off your friend, that wolf, said Shiva with an arrogant tone, and Ice listens to that. He just opens his eyes in surprise, just hearing that his best friend that he had with him in good and bad times has been killed, and only to give a scream and left his powerful liberal aura. The whole place began to shake due to Ice's powerful aura. Even some of his soldier fell due to the strong pressure that Ice released. A reddish aura began to surround Ice, only for them to give another scream much louder than before, only to enter his demon mode. Some only scared him, but the leaders only increased their aura, and as Serziches he released his true form. But even so, Ice looked at him with a look so cold and at the same time murderous, only for great speed to disappear from his side of him. The leaders only heard cries of pain and suffering, and with great fear, they only turned with their heads, only to see a large mountain of dead, and on top of it was Ice. Some had a look of terror. Just a few seconds Ice had finished with only his army. They felt Ice's gaze that reflected a great hatred towards them, but the one who looked at him was more at Shiva and saying a simple word that would make that everyone had a chill. "I will kill him" was the only thing that came out of Ice's mouth. Chapter 14. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone had very serious faces, since in front of them was the person who could end their faction alone and no one else. Serziches, Serafal, Ajuka and Falbium just raised their hands, and several magic circles appeared behind them, only to throw a stream of power towards Ice. He just saw that, he just started to dodge, but Shiva and Zeus appeared in front of him, only to receive a blow from Shiva, and Zeus only threw a powerful beam at Ice, but he was not the only one without Thor with his hammer. Ice just held on not to cry out in pain, just to increase his aura a little more, but he felt how his power was decreasing too much, only to look up and see that it was worth him using his sacred gear. After Ice is pierced by a spear of light, his left shoulder turns his head, and seeing that it was Azazel, with a serious face, Ice only removes the spear of light. Only to begin to receive a lot of sphere of energy, and seeing that it was Yusaka, and after some snake began to overwhelm him with their body, and without further ado, that same snake began to exert a lot of force. "Ah" was Ice's cry as he felt how his body and bones were broken, to just see how Indra and Hades were in front of him, but he had a malicious smile, and without further ado, he just received the best attacks from both of them. Ice only got up with difficulty, only to look at the person who was in front of him. Only at great speed did they hit Zeus, which made him spit blood, and then he grabbed Thor on the foot and began to give him turn around and throw him where Odin was next to Serafal, and then appear in front of Serziches and Ajuka and give each one a powerful blow to the face and another to the stomach. Only for Office to throw a large amount of snake at him, only for Ice to destroy it with his fists and throw some of it at his opponent, who screamed in pain since he knew that that snake was not weak at all. But Indra realized one simple thing. She saw Ingvild, who was in a safe place, and remembered that Ice had taken her out of the building when they destroyed it, and she just formed a malicious smile and watched as Ice kicked Serziches, volley even Office, only to see Ingvild again and go down to the ground and grab her by the neck. Ice Indra's voice echoed throughout the place, and Ice just looked at Indra, only for his eyes to become ones of terror. "Don't even think about Indra, she has nothing to do with this," said Ice with a serious voice, but at the same time worried for Ingvild, the only person who made him happy for that 3 week. I think he has a very nice bond with her. What happens if I kill her now?" said Indra, just to put her hand on Ingvild's heart. "Please do T kill her," said Ice, returning to normal and looking into Indra's eyes, who was doing the same thing, but he just started laughing. I can't believe it, the son of the Demon King asking please," Indra said with great grace, only to remove Ingvild's hand from his chest and pointed at Ice, only to start throwing a lot of energy sphere at him, but one of that sphere, I remove Ice's left arm. He only screamed in pain, since he knew very well, without him he would move even a millimeter, Indra would kill Ingvild, and without that things would happen. Indra was going to be Ice's torture toy. Indra launches another attack, but this time, he was much stronger than the previous ones, causing Ice to receive that attack and get totally hurt, only to see how Indra threw Ingvild, and Indra at great speed, he stood in front of Ice and threw him to the ground and step on his chest, causing him to moan in pain. Indra only creates 7 swords in his right hand and begins to bury each one in his chest, one by one, until he lacks it, and Indra just smiles, that's why. Under the gaze of everyone, although Serziches and some of them, he wanted to end Ice's suffering, but they knew that this was not the way to defeat him. They used a girl as their weak point. "Now Ice, you were a great warrior," were the only words that came out on Indra's lips, but Ice only had a sad face. So each leader left the place. He no longer had anything to do in that place, even though the demons and the fallen. He had to tell Gabriel that his son died in a proud way, just so that his beloved would not be killed by Indra. Ingvild had woken up from unconsciousness only to see her surroundings completely destroyed, but she had headed to where there was a small crater, and without further ado, she began walking towards that place, only for her tears to begin to fall from her beautiful eyes. Since in front of her was the body of her lover lying lifeless and several swords throughout her body. "But what did they do to you, Ice?" Ingvild said between tears, and with a slow step she approached Ice's body, just to hug him and cry. No, because, please open your eyes, Ice, please don't die," Ingvild said over and over again with tears. "Ooh," was Ingvild's heartbroken cry from her, because she lost a person she secretly loved and would never be able to tell him what she felt for him. The Sky Faction. Gabriel and the other seraphim were talking about the topic of Ice, since in the end they couldn't find him first, then a magic circle formed and a hologram of Serziches appeared, but he had a serious face. "What's up Serziches?" Michael said with a serious tone. We found Ice and fought with him, Serzicha said seriously, but the seraphim only opened their eyes in surprise, but they weren't going to like something, but more so for Gabriel. What did they do? Uriel asked, only for Serzicha to give a long sigh. Indra killed him, Serzicha said seriously. Everyone in the room opened their eyes in surprise, but Gabriel was filled with terror. Where is he? Gabriel shouted, desperate because he knew that his son was dead, while tears came out in his eyes. At this moment he is in a dimension that still remains, he is with a girl that we have never seen before, Serzicha was going to say, but he only saw how Gabriel made a magic circle and left there. Serzicha believed that it was necessary to kill him, you know that he stopped attacking the factions for 3 weeks. We didn't even hear from him anymore, Michael said with a serious tone, but at the same time sad. Serzicha remained silent now. Which was true, they never received an attack from Ice again, what's more, not even his aura appeared, also and most importantly who was that girl, maybe she changed Ice a lot. He even saw how she asked please and begged him. Indra so that he would not murder her. It won't be, Serzicha said in a whisper. The former battlefield. The magic circle appeared in the destruction of that place, and Gabriel came out with a desperate and worried face at the same time, and thanks to his super-developed hearing, he began to hear a girl crying, only to turn his head and see a girl hug a body while crying. Gabriel only opened his eyes in terror, seeing the person he was doing hugged by the girl. She began to approach both young people with a very slow step, but the girl realized. Go away, I want to be alone with Ice, Ingvild said in a scream. I'm Gabriel, Ice's mother, Gabriel said through tears, just to see the way he had left his son and Ingvild to listen to that, he is filled with more hatred than he was. Go away, Ice was not your son and he never was, because of the way you are, because of you and the fault of the facts they killed Ice. He no longer wants to know anything more about the factions, he had even left his idea to destroy him just so he could live in peace with me, but that was ruined because of him, Ingvild said between tears and screams, and Gabriel just stood there while more tears fell in his eyes, because he knows what his son was going to do in his future, and without further ado, just create a magic circle with the pain of your soul. I really regret that time. I don't know how much I wanted Ice to be alive, but I had thought that Gabriel had killed him, but it wasn't like that. He had appeared at the faction meeting. No, he knows how happy I was because he knew that Ice was alive, but after all you and he are right, I never took that position as a mother. I just want to say goodbye to him please, Gabriel said between Lagrima only stopped to approach Ice, and Ingvild only stood aside. I'm very sorry Ice for not taking the role of mother in my life, it's something that I will always regret in my life, Gabriel said through tears, and only to give Ice a kiss on the forehead and leave him in the Ingvild arm. Thank you were her only words to enter the magical circle that she had made and leave, with the pain of her soul, for not taking her son's body and burying it as it should be, but she herself knew that that girl was going to take him to a better place than her, and without further ado he left leaving Ingvild crying in Ice's body. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.